moving right on along. This is the first just kind of initial fit with the IRS cradle. I think this is that point where a lot of people start asking what in the wide world of sports is going on here. And I'll try to explain it. I'm trying to get the proper location for the independent rear suspension cradle for the Cuda. And you can see that, you know, none of the contours of the cradle fit the frame rails, of course. So this all has to be modified a lot. So what is going to end up happening here is I've got to take this cradle and be able to bring the whole thing down and get it into the frame rails. Actually, the back will have to have a built-up part, it looks like, that connects it in, and the front will just have a lot of cutting and boxing done. So what I've done is leveled everything, got center lines on everything that I could think of, including the cradle center line. Showed you that in the other video with the rear end snout, the third member snout. Okay, I got wheel center lines. I got car center lines, which you may not see marked, but if I move this board right here, you can see there's my actual car center line. Okay, so I just had the board kind of lined up with this, about like that. All right, so what I did is went to my local cheap Chinese tool center and I bought plumb bobs. So that plumb bob down from the center line of the cradle, and you may say, well, your line's going off to one side. Actually, it's not. The string is right on top of the corrected line. So that goes to the center there, and then you got the wheel center lines, which you can barely see the silver mark on the string there. The wheel center lines are marked, and then the wheel center line for the frame rail is marked. So I strung across both of the wheel center lines on the frame rails after measuring that out, and then plumb bobbed both of the sides of the cradle, and that gives me my fore aft placement as well as left right. So the next step in the process will be to take a threaded rod of the appropriate size and put it through these back mounts. And what that's going to do for me is locate two positions where when I flip the Cuda back over and start trying to put the IRS cradle in, it gives me points where I can raise and lower the cradle and keep it in a good relative position while I start cutting away pieces of the frame rail. You wouldn't want to cut the frame rail while you're sitting on the rotisserie / lift, because it does both. Because, you know, it's held by points there and points in the front. If you start cutting the frame rails out, you're going to create a taco. So the whole back of the car stands a pretty good chance of folding in on itself and this thing laying on its roof on the floor. So that is something that we're not going to do, right? But I'll double, triple check all the measurements and then start proceeding from there. Next stop is threaded rod land. I talked about remeasuring everything and just wanted to put this in here for the sake of posterity. The cradle center line is actually the middle of that hole right there. So you don't have to do much measuring, just find the middle of the hole. That string is displaced slightly to the right now, I think, but there's the center line. Okay, so what have all the strings and the boards and the this and the that and the leveling, what has that done for us? Well, what it did is it gave me the ability to figure out at least 2 points where the rear end cradle will be very close to where it's supposed to be in the different axes. Okay, so what I did was, first of all, this is all metric stuff, so I drilled out the rear mounts to 5/8. They were pretty close to that, but a half inch would have been too small. As far as the threaded rod goes, 5/8 was a better fit. Drilled it out just a little bit. Because I can't get metric threaded rod, bro. This is the United States. So did that, drop both of them, and see where the points end up being. All right, and interestingly enough, the points are just in front of whatever bump stop or whatever that is that mounts right there. So on both sides. So when I dropped the threaded rods through on both sides, I was able to go, okay, yeah, they're really close, because where the threaded rods hit on the frame rails was pretty close to the same point. I was able to do just a little bit more adjusting and then zip some 5/8 inch nuts onto the frame rail. Excuse me. So now I can unscrew the threaded rods, take off the IRS cradle, take off all the boards, flip the car over, and then when I get ready to start messing with the cradle from the upright position, I will have locator pins where the cradle needs to go when it goes up. All right, so that's where I am at this point.